This is a 2022 Volvo XC90 T8 Recharge Hybrid, 50 miles per gallon, 400 horsepower, full slew of airbags and safety features, almost practically automatic driving. And every time you park it on a hill, this plug-in hybrid will engage the parking brake automatically. This is a 1969 Volvo 164, and every time you park it on a hill, you bring out a block of wood. Not necessarily. Here I was doing a few adjustments to the carburetor, but in this video I want to talk about why, instead of having a newer car, I've been driving this almost 60-year-old Volvo on the daily in Los Angeles, 2.5 to 4.5 hours a day. It's not a great daily driver, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons around that. Pro, just to get to the point here, it's cool, and you get a lot of positive attention from folks. And the other side of that pro is that perhaps it's not cool. I hope that wasn't too loud for you headphone users. And nobody's really going to bother me if I park it in places, because it's not perfectly shiny and, you can see through the windows. So it may not get targeted for things like petty theft, etc. It might be a target for theft of the entire vehicle, but that's another concern altogether. The other side of that theft deterrent is, or just the coolness of it, is that it's a little more engaging to drive. It's a car that requires you to pay attention to the problems because you don't want to have any issues that you are unprepared for. For example, if the steering starts getting loose, or you're like, oh, my brakes don't feel right. With an older car, you can't take those chances, because the flip side of that coin, it's not as safe. It doesn't have all the cool bells and whistles, but it definitely has the cool factor. Being engaging to drive also makes you, and being a conscious driver, also makes you a safer driver. You keep distance from people. I mean, it's got power brakes, but right now they're disconnected, so essentially no power brakes. And I keep my distance. I've been living life in the slow lane. You can kind of appreciate a little bit more of the scenery around you, and all the other cars that are zipping by. But the flip side of that gets us right into the cons list. But I want to mention one more thing, and that is it's cheap to insure. This car annually, it's about $630. My 122 is about $100 cheaper every year. And of course, it'll be even more of a basic car in terms of no power steering, no power brakes, etc. The XC90 that I have is a 2007. That one is $150 more per year, so we're looking at like $800 a year. And then we had a Kia in the family that was financed, so of course that's going to bring the price up, but it was $1,000 a year. So that's almost $500 more than just an old 164, or $600 more than a 122. So the last thing of the pros list was positive insurance. Now, as we get to the cons list, being an unsafe car, it's a Volvo, so it's the safest of the old cars, but it's still going to be, there's no anti-lock brakes, and it's something that you can be the best driver in the world, but if you do get into a big bad accident, of course these newer SUVs are just going to be so much better, not only by their size but by their safety features. Crumple zones are improved, rollover protection is improved, although I don't see this being an issue, rollover protection on an old 164, but still. Airbags, of course, collapsible steering wheel. Actually, I do have a collapsible steering column, so airbags are probably the biggest one here. And automatic braking. It is hot, though. It's, February in Los Angeles, so right now it's perfect at like 55 degrees. But boy, oh boy, we had a hot week last week. It was in the 90s, and I was sweating. Not only is it hot, but when I have the window down to get some air, it's smelly. All these fumes, because we're pre-emissions, pre-catalytic converter. It's just raw hydrocarbons coming out of this exhaust, and I got a little too fumigated, and it was really bugging me. Be hot and smelly. Makes it kind of a demanding vehicle. It demands more time, more attention, and of course you can have air conditioning. It does come at a premium, but to me it was just the cool factor of having a classic car on the streets that I liked the most. The last thing on my cons list, it's leaky, and when you add all of those things together, I've got a towel underneath it in addition to that block of wood. Adding up all that stuff, it is kind of tiring to have a 50, almost 60-year-old classic car as a daily driver. The reason why I did that, well, let's go for a little drive and we'll talk a little bit about that. A year ago, I was reflecting on this build because we had started this project as something that was to feel better and more engaging about as I get a new daily driver for the city, for the new year. Everyone got a little depressed with COVID, so I wanted something fun and cool. So getting behind the wheel of this car was a lot of fun. I just took it all over the country. We did 11,000 miles working on my movie for all the footage that I got. I can't even figure out which key it is. There's so many. But it definitely asks a lot of my time to keep it going. Anyway, I just did some adjustments to the carburetors. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but let's get her out on the road and see how those work. I put in modern seatbelts because you got to have modern safety wherever possible. And if we're lucky, nope, no dome light. Okay. Look, the throttle. Oh, non-synchronized reverse, that's fine. Let's go check this out. Now, having a classic is kind of crazy because these things are appreciating in value, and the more you drive it, the more you risk getting into an accident or small damages, etc., etc. Like this morning, we scuffed the roommate's car in the parking garage, and it's no big deal because you can find parts for something like that. It's a 2017 Chevy. But for this thing, imagine finding a fender if you get into a small fender bender. So daily use is only going to hurt the value, but at the same time, a classic car is meant to be driven, meant to be enjoyed, so you don't want to just be the guy who becomes too conservative with the vehicle to the point where you never actually take it out on the road and have a good time. So that's where weekends and driving seasons exist. Car shows, car meets, cruises, etc. I just did 2 full tanks of gas, about 350, 400 miles on my 122 this weekend. I took it from Los Angeles all the way down to Salton City, that big saltwater body, and visited the guy that the car was named after, etc., etc. And it was fun, but I wouldn't want to do that every day. Like, I drove this car 2.5 to 4 hours every day, and boy, oh boy, does that tire me out. So I guess this is a 7.5 minute way of just saying I'm going to be putting Ivy on the back burner, weekends, holidays, all that good stuff. And I will be buying myself another better daily. And of course, there's going to be a video series on it. So I think I'll just tell you all right now. If you've been on Patreon, you knew a while ago what it was, and there's pictures of the car there, but I'm going to leave it more as a visual surprise. Although there is, I'll give you a hint, the car does show up on my YouTube channel for a video from like last summer somewhere. It's very brief, but I might as well just say it. I'll be buying a 2004 silver S60R. Best part is pumpkin orange interior. Oh yeah. So I hope you enjoyed our little drive. I think the carburetor adjustment's fine. It'll get me home. Yeah, these things need a rebuild for sure, but Ivy's been a great car and hasn't let me down, hasn't really disappointed, not really asked much aside from just regular tinkering and oil changes, but ooh, she's running filthy rich. And here's another problem. Let's see if she'll shut off nicely. She did. She'll diesel on quite a bit. It's all part of the carburetor stuff. Anyway, I'm looking forward to showing you that S60R, but why don't we just do one quick walk around here. Appreciate Ivy. She's got some breathing room aside from these 290s here. Okay, well, I'm just here doing some work on a little Italian thing in the garage and thought I'd pop in and say hello, and then I'll fix my parking because, yikes. By the way, this is me from the last couple of days. All of that, and over there as well. What can you say? Love them as they are, but love them too much to keep them that way. Okay, hope you all are doing well. Talk soon.